focus on what's important and take away anything else. I recently read this book that it's really awesome. It's called Be Your Future Self Now. And they talk about when Michelangelo was carving the David sculpture, he said he carved and took away what wasn't necessary. So if you put that in your business, then don't get distracted by all these lesser goals.
Greetings and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and I am super excited today that we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Deb, and Deb's actually going to tell us a little bit about herself, but welcome to the show, first of all, Deb.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, I'm excited about just hearing all of the wisdom. So what I did, I went and looked at your page and things like that, and I love the topic I for Wellness. And so when I started this podcast, it came out of me wanting to capture trailblazers and change agents that were doing things that were disruptive and different than the status quo. So when I saw I for Wellness, I was like, wow, do we really need wellness, especially in the nursing profession? And we've went through quite a bit. And so to hear more about wellness, I think everybody needs to hear about. So I'm super excited to hear about what that's all about. But first, can you actually tell us who you are?
Okay, but can I just start it with, I just want to say a little short disclaimer.
Yes, please.
Okay, so these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This program or products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or mitigate disease. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Actually, I'm just going to read like the first part of your bio, Deb. And it said, Deb works with disruptive technology that measures the nutritional status of patients. She has a vision to continually build a better healthcare system that relies on nutrition to boost patient outcomes and prevention while creating practices that thrive. And now you tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Okay, well, I'll first say where I live in Toronto, Ontario, with my husband. Although I live in Toronto, I do work mostly with doctors in the U.S. We have 2 children. They're both artists, and I have 2 grandchildren. So I'm at a place where I can spend as much time as I like with them, which is super exciting. And
that's
I can
great.
Nice to work for yourself. I've been doing that for years anyway. Like COVID didn't cause that. I've been doing it for like 20 some odd years.
Oh, awesome. Well, congratulations for that, having a successful business.
And I guess I would start out with, I learned early on what I didn't want in what I wanted to do for work for my life. So my mom, after I finished high school, I'm from that era where she said, you got to go and get a job, forget about school. You got to go save for retirement, get a house, and have a really safe, cushion, whatever.
Yes.
So that lasted about 1.5 years for me before I realized I went and worked for some big corporation, started it in the mailroom, and I thought, this is not for me.
No.
So I used that job to save up for college, and I have a really creative brain, so I took fashion design, and I loved that and still love fashion and things like that and creativity, but it just wasn't quite right. So then that led me to graphic design. And I had my own agency for about 17 years. So I stuck with that for quite some time. But, and then I've also along the way always been interested in health, life hacking. My husband is 14 years older than me, so we're really interested in that kind of thing. And during that time when I was working in graphic design, a biochemist in Toronto scanned me randomly. I met him through a friend. And just understanding that you can find out how well your nutrients are being absorbed in a quick 30-second test, I just thought it was super interesting. So I guess that was the first thing that piqued my interest. I didn't drop my job and run towards that right away. It took some time. But just knowing that you could put a little bit more health into healthcare and maybe, create a little ripple in the healthcare system. Because if there's a lot of people creating change, then something larger can happen. So that really intrigued me.
Right.
And I think everything you do leads up to what you're doing today. So, I use my design when I work with doctors. There are some doctors that don't even have logos. So I love doing that stuff. So, and I create marketing pieces for them and things like that. So I have a lot to add as well as doing this business.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And it's kind of interesting. You said your kids are artists as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah. So let me go back to the Eye for Wellness. Can you actually tell us a little bit about what that is?
Okay, so I'm a consultant to healthcare providers, and I coach and train offices and doctors how to use nutritional testing in their office. And the name is kind of a play on words, Eye for Wellness. No, I don't only work with eye doctors, but I do work with eye doctors as well. so,
Okay.
so it's a totally turnkey program. We have a letter so they can introduce the nutritional testing to their patients. We have patient brochures, everything the doctor would need to kind of plug and play and add prevention to their office. And what it allows them is it improves patient loyalty. It's that prevention piece, and it also helps with extra income. And I don't think there's any independent healthcare provider who doesn't want that in their practice, really. All those
Yeah,
things.
exactly. Yeah. Well, how does that actually impacts the patient's life?
Well, there's actually an emotional response when you get that scan score. So it might give you, a kick in the pants to, I guess I'm not eating as many fruits and vegetables as I should, because you see it and it's an immediate. It helps the doctor with, it's like another validation tool. They may do blood work as well, but this is immediate. So it could be what they lead in with when a patient first comes to see them. And then from that, the doctor can create protocol and measure the difference in a couple of months. It's a 2-month window of what you're doing if you're going to make change through adding nutrition, through changing your diet, and or adding supplementation to your diet. And yeah.
So I have a question. So how does it work then, Deb?
Well,
How does it actually work?
Well, it's testing antioxidant levels. So it's actually a beam of light, and it's called light refraction, that goes from the device, and it's a blue light. It's a wavelength, and it goes into the tissue of your hand right here, totally non-invasive. And when that interacts with specifically carotenoids, which is one type of antioxidant, there's this shift in the light, and it goes back in the device. It changes, it vibrates to a higher wavelength and goes into the device and gives an accurate measurement. And it's not anything... the technology has been around since 1930. It was invented by Sir C.V. Raman, and he wanted to find out why. He was intrigued by why icebergs were blue, and that's how it started out.
Oh, wow.
And it does have it did start out in eye health, where the NIH gave research funding to find out different ways where you could assess disease risk earlier of AMD and other eye diseases. So it used to test through the eyeball, but then they realized you could get a similar score through the tissue in the hand non-invasively. So that really opened up to any doctor could use it.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now, you said you first actually were scanned yourself, and that's what piqued your interest.
Right.
Yeah, so I'd like to know a little bit about, because you were going along your regular life, and then boom, this thing happens, and then you're like, okay, I need to do something else. So I'd love to hear, like, how did that trajectory change, and was that easy to do?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy to do because it's such a huge shift. But I think there's always these little mini moments that change your path slowly or fast. Everybody's different, right? It's kind of like sliding doors. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's pretty interesting that one small thing can change everything.
Yes.
So, yeah. So as I dove deeper into it, so actually hearing doctors' case studies. So now it's no longer just like someone telling their testimonial. Hearing doctors' case studies and actually seeing their findings. So they would test someone and also do blood work. So there was kind of a corroboration between the two. Similar meaning. If you have a low antioxidant level, it means that you have more inflammation in your body, and that leads to disease, right? So if early on, let's say you're predisposed to diabetes. I mean, if you have a lower score, you're more open to disease. So maybe now you're going to make some changes, and it may stick if you can actually see that what you're doing is working.
So in general, most people don't really see what they're doing.
No, they don't. And it's so funny because in health, we're measuring all kinds of things. We're measuring blood pressure, blood glucose, bone density, all these things. Why aren't we measuring nutrition?
Yes, that's
'Cause
so true.
yeah, it's a big part, right?
Yeah, I remember in nursing program, I remember this one statement. It says that I think it said in our young adult years is when we create our disease processes.
Hmm.
And that always stuck with me because, when you're young, you're thinking, I can eat what I want. I can do what I want. And then you get older and you start having all of these issues because
Right.
you really didn't discipline yourself as we went along. So it's very intriguing what you're talking about. So, what success have you seen with doctors, with the doctors? What kind of success have they had?
I can tell you a personal success that someone I recently started working with. She's a health coach in Boston. And I introduced the scanner to her, and she said, I'm going to decide in a couple of days whether I want to bring this into my health coaching business. And she never said anything to me about any health issues or whatever. And but apparently she was having pain in her teeth, and it would go around to the back of her head, and she would have massive headaches. She'd been through all kinds of testing. Nothing came up, even through specific dental testing, all this. She couldn't find out what was wrong with her. And she was pretty desperate at that time, and she never said anything to me. But so she got the scanner, and she said nanotechnology with supplementation made sense to her because that makes it more absorbable in your body. And she knew she had inflammation, and her scan score was quite low. So that kind of showed that. And so within a week, she noticed changes. And within a month, she was pain-free by adding a nutraceutical to her diet.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. Now, once you recognize that, okay, I have a low score,
Yeah.
how do you get the sustainability? How you get the wisdom to shift and change your diet and things like that? Do you also help with that?
Well, it depends on what doctor is using the scanner. If you're working with an eye doctor or a dentist, they're more going to be using the nutraceuticals, which have a profound effect as well. But maybe a naturopath is going to go more for diet changes as well, too. Or, there's so much information out there.
Right.
Now, like eye doctors are showing you how to eat healthy for
Yes.
eye disease. So there's so much out there now that I think it can be a bit of both for sure. And so I think it's just another tool to show how if it's working for the patient or not.
Yeah, that's great. So let me ask you a question. How can doctors and staff benefit from this? How can it improve their health?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's not really going to work in their practice unless the doctor themselves believe in nutrition. Because I'm sure you're going to agree with me here, but most doctors have a lot of stress, especially if they own their own business, and they tend to not scan very high. Because stress is another thing, right? That's free radical damage. It's all the same thing, oxidative stress. And so the doctor, if they make changes and they can see changes in themselves, then they're going to be talking to the patients differently. And then, they're also making their staff healthier because the staff is learning about this as well. So it really helps the office, the staff, and the patients. And that's where you see the success of the program working better, when everybody's involved.
Well, and it's such a wonderful thing because especially now in this era where we are in increased stress, like major crises going on, and to be able to actually feel better about yourself would be amazing. I think I want to do that scan. I do, just to see where I'm at. It would be good to see where you are.
You're in California?
Yes, I'm in California.
Yeah, well, we'll talk later, but I can find a scanner close to you.
Okay, that would be great. So why is it a good fit for medical practice? What would you say to that question?
Well, I think any form of validation you can show a patient. A lot of our doctors call it a behavior modification tool. So, people love the numbers. They're used to report cards. So this is like a health report card. Let's see if we can do better. And you can measure. If you can't measure, how do you really know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to dig into the fact that you have been in business for 20 years. How do you sustain yourself? Give us some tips and tricks of how to have a successful business such as this.
Well, I haven't been doing this business for 20. I've been doing it full time for 4 years and about for 10 years part-time. But, so how do I sustain myself? Well, I do a lot of different things. I stay focused. I make sure I have other outlets. Like, I find since I have that creative brain, I really like to feed that. So I do pottery. And so I find it kind of has a parallel to my job or a metaphor. It teaches me patience. You have to, wedge the clay. You have
Yes.
to hone up it's really tricky, let me tell you. So it teaches you patience, and you're dealing with personalities in this business and doctors are busy. So you have to be patient. When it's the right time for them, then it's going to work. And I would also, another thing I find is if you don't, if you want to do something and you have a passion and heart for it, when you're all in, that's when you start to see success. If you only dip your toe in and say, let me wait and see if it's successful, and then I'll put more time into it, that's not going to work. But and really just having goals, set goals, like where do you want to be in a year, 5 years, write it down in extreme detail. And I think that can help you get there. And also positivity, affirmations, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that advice. So over the, I know you've seen it like over the last 3 years, with our COVID-19 and everything else that's going on. Like, have you seen any differences in the clientele that you work with at all with the increased stress?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think when you see all kinds of stuff about mental health, and I see so many people who are coaches for stress. You see that all over LinkedIn. So it is definitely a problem. And I think it's important to just to talk more about mental health. And I think it is more accepted now. You see that as well. People are more talking about their life and their struggles on LinkedIn even too as well. So people are more relatable. And I think
absolutely.
I think people just have more patience with each other too, because you don't know what they're going through, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you said you're a life coach and consultant as well, correct?
Oh, I'm not a life coach. No.
Okay. No. You're a medical consultant.
Yeah, consultant. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So tell me a little bit about that position.
Okay. So what I do, I ask a lot of questions. So, my first thing is when I meet a doctor, you want to find out about their practice. What is their workflow like? How many patients do they see a day? And most importantly, do they believe in nutrition? Because I'm not here to convince anyone.
Yeah.
So if they are, then they would order the scanner program, and then I would train. I can do everything via Zoom. That's one thing COVID taught me.
Yeah. And
I used to meet doctors through trade shows that I'd go to in the US, but now I just meet doctors on social media, LinkedIn especially. That's more of a professional network. And, I find doctors, I network with people like yourself, people in healthcare, and it's worked out really well.
Well, that's great. So the scanner itself, how big is the scanner? Is it pretty small? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I always say it's the size of a Kleenex box. It's pretty small.
Okay, awesome. No, that's great. And then you do the training online on Zoom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, why don't you tell me? I usually do this for all of the guests. I'd love to hear 3. It'll be Deb's top 3 pieces of advice or wisdom that you can give people. And I'm going to cut it there so you can just flow with it.
Okay. All right. Well, I probably have more than 3, but I'll try.
Oh, that's good. Give us all of it. Give us all of it.
Yeah. So one thing is focus on what's important and take away anything else. I recently read this book that it's really awesome. It's called Be Your Future Self Now. And they talk about when Michelangelo was carving the David sculpture, he said he carved and took away what wasn't necessary. So if you put that in your business, then don't get distracted by all these lesser goals. Try to, because you can really get sidetracked and move away from what your ultimate goal is. But you want to obviously piece it down into lesser goals so you're not overwhelmed.
Wait, so say that one more time. Carve. Let me hear that statement.
He said, so when he was carving the sculpture, he took away what wasn't necessary to create the masterpiece.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, you can use that for everything, right?
Yeah, you can.
That quote somewhere on Google. We'll go look for it after. And I think I said too, don't wait until. Another thing is I like to learn, so I don't wait till you know it all. Learn as you go. Fail forward. Failing is great. Don't wait for perfection. Be a doer. And a thing about affirmations, I read in also that book. So in affirmations, usually say I am, so that you're focusing on that you're already that. But you can add to that and you say, I know I am. So you're already your future self saying that you've already achieved it. So it even makes it more powerful. And I read affirmations twice a day. And I have a morning routine that I do too, just to get your mind in the right flow for the day, that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just, I don't know, I have other advice if you want me to give them.
Hey, share. Let's share. Those are so rich, because people love little nuggets like that, and I'm going to definitely capture some of them because it's really powerful. Just the word that someone needs to hear. So share a couple more if you don't mind.
Okay, and just also control your time and your schedule. Because I found I was overwhelmed by networking during COVID, overwhelmed. I got so burnt out. So I just thought, okay, that's it. I like my mornings, so I just blocked off my mornings. And then I thought, I don't want to do it every day. So then now I only network twice a week, and the rest. And then I have a different calendar that I give a doctor, so I'm more available then. So that was another thing to have a couple of calendars that you could use and invest in that, because you got to pay monthly for those things if you want something that specific. But those
that's
kind
awesome.
Of control your time. Guard your time. Let me see. Outwork your self-doubt, because that's another thing. I also felt that I don't come from a medical background. How can I even do this? I just thought, I can learn, and I'm a good student. So I just thought, let's talk to people who are training officers. Let's find out what they're doing, because people come from all different backgrounds. Some of them might be medical device reps, are already used to calling on doctors, and I'm not at all. So.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. It took a while. Yeah.
Well, those were really awesome. You have any more?
Well, everyone's heard before. If you're not comfortable, you're not growing. That's another thing I truly believe in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. So why don't you tell us how people can get in touch with you? What do you offer, and how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's pretty distinctive, Deb Hatanaka. I think I'm the only one.
Yes.
so LinkedIn. My website is I for Wellness. So it's IEYE, the number 4 wellness.com. People can schedule an appointment with me there on my contact page. That's probably the best. And I think contact information is on my LinkedIn profile too.
Okay, that's wonderful. Wow, such a breath of fresh air, Deb. I really am just really excited to understand what this is all about. So I'm definitely going to be looking into it as well, because I think if you can, as you're on your journey being the best version of yourself, or a higher expression of yourself, I think I want to call it, when you're working on your health, it would be really good and beneficial, I think, to even see a scan to see how you really are doing, so that you can make adjustments if you need to make adjustments. So I'm excited about that. So thank you so much for the wisdom. Any last words from you before we say goodbye?
Let me see. Another thing I would say is especially if you're going out and you're trying something new and you're just making a switch in your career or whatever, just don't do it alone. Find a tribe, people to rally around. Find your tribe on LinkedIn, support each other. Yeah. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Yeah. And I think that is critical, because quite honestly, I remember even when I was questioning myself about starting this podcast, there were so many encouraging voices that helped me to say, you know what, just go for it. Just do it. Don't pay attention to all of the other things that are going on. So that is very, very valuable. And I remember I think it was a quote that said something about look around your circle. Those 5 people that are around you are where you're going to grow to. So make sure you have the right 5 people around you, or however many people around you. So thank you so much for your wisdom. I'm so honored that you came on this show, and I hope listening audience, you tap into some of this wonderful technology that Deb has. So thank you so much for being on the show, Deb.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.